Welcome back, everyone. Really excited to see you all here. Scott, it's been a minute. Good to have you back, sir. And Shane, good to see you too, sir. Um, Jessica is not a member of our group, but she's a special guest. She's gonna do a great presentation today. She has a great presentation prepared for us, but I'm not gonna steal any of that thunder. Jessica, please introduce yourself to the group and let's get to it.
Yeah. Hey, I'm Jessica Tierney. Some of you guys may know me. Some of you guys may not know me. But I am 18 years in the multifamily space. I've worked every single asset type, even into the affordable and renovation sectors. And one of the things that I really realized quickly was how fragmented all of the technology is and how much for all of these different asset classes, it made it very hard to do my job. In 2020, right when COVID was beginning, I made the decision to switch to prop tech to solve real problems. I've worked on the procurement side, so I've worked for vendor suppliers. I additionally, worked for the screening side in a couple of other different prop techs, and now I am out on my own. I started my own business called Inked, and it is to work with multifamily, BTR, SFR to essentially figure out like what workflows and systems work for them and how to vet tech appropriately and also how to make it work to whatever asset class that they have. So with that being said, Adrian and I had the pleasure of meeting. I told him kind of my backstory and what I've done. And he graciously was like, hey, do you want to do this? So what I'm going over with you guys today is a real look from all different levels on the property side on what things you should be asking or digging deeper as we go through these systems. I have user stories. I have how they compare in pricing, how they compare in features, and ultimately just where we need to dig deeper for our sites and do better for our sites and our staff when we're vetting technology. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and launch the deck, but it's a pleasure to meet y'all and happy to be here.
Looks good.
Perfect. Not too small. Everything's good. Readable.
Totally. It takes most of the screen, about 90%. So
No worries.
if we don't see it, we need a pair of glasses.
Awesome. All right. So what we're going to cover today, the real evaluation question, where the platforms fit, platform profiles, vendor deep dives, use case comparison, cost ranking, and questions to ask the vendors, and a recommended evaluation path. All of these items are super important when you're vetting technology. And if you don't really pick from the beginning what you're trying to cover for and thinking about all of these questions, this is where we tend to find that we get into tech and it's not exactly what we were looking for. So stop asking what technology does. Ask whether it helps the teams operate better, faster, with more visibility, right? So faster, time for requests submitted to technician, dispatch, and dispatch to close. Better, fewer repeat callbacks, higher first time fix rate, and PM completed on schedule. More visible, regional portfolio leaders can see status and risk without calling the site. So when you're vetting technology, you're looking at every single aspect of what each level at the property needs to understand, right? So one of the biggest misconceptions about some of these tools is that people think that they replace the PMS of record, property management system of record. It doesn't. It's a layer. Obviously, Yardi, RealPage, Entrata, all of those systems are meant for like their leasing, their resident screening, the accounting. And we all know that the reason why that there's so many of these wonderful maintenance layers is because the systems really didn't think about the maintenance side. It was more of an afterthought, right? So these give you guys way more visibility and a better distinction of what's going on from a maintenance side for your teams of what they do every day. So let's get into it. Leonardo247. Obviously, you guys probably know a lot of these that I'm talking about, but they're AI-driven property operations platforms. This is one of the ones that has the broadest operational footprint. They do a lot of great preventative maintenance, risk management, inspections. They have smart task automation and workflow templates, so it's really unique. So if you have multi-property portfolios and they function a little bit different, you can actually set up workflows that accommodate those. They also recently acquired Turnable, which is more on the student housing turn management. So that's a net new function for them. I would be really curious, and it's where I have the dig deeper, confirm how long it's been doing student housing workflows, because if it hasn't been generally available for like a long time, there might be things that are still being developed. And then it's a strong fit for portfolios with compliance documentation, and anything needs to be audit ready. So what does that mean, right? So build compliant first, confirm reactive work orders. Broader scope can mean heavier initial rollouts. About time to value for single asset class. Vendor bidding, day-to-day dispatch are lighter. Dedicated work order tools, you need to verify that against your busiest trade categories. And then technician level, ticket by ticket visibility for shift supervisor isn't clearly shown. Ask for a live drill down. These are things that in the demos are typically not really shown. It's stuff that you have to really ask in order for you to see a real life comparison to what your current property or asset class needs. So we dug a little bit deeper, talked to a lot of users, talked to different level of users. There seems to be some app stability questions. It's been described to me as choppy. We've had occasional work not saving or test field entry on spotty connection before rollout. Onboarding wait, several reviewers flag as slower than expected ramp up. So broad scope means more screens. Who has time for more screens, right? And then workflows to train technicians on also is on a heavier side. It also, too, has a reoccurring theme in reviews that the task automation layer can feel heavy-handed to seasoned technicians. So almost like they can't determine what they want to get done or how they want to do it. So it gives them more of a micromanagement feel. Where the compliance falls short, it's reactive dispatch and secondary. So the platform is built for compliance first. So whether audit or licensing workflows come at the expense of the fast reactive work order routing. So that's kind of like something to really think about. Does that work for your business model? The turnable integration is new. There hasn't been like a lot of documentation around this yet. A lot of people are still unfamiliar with it. So this is something that will need to be dug into a little bit further, have them show you what's available if you're in the student housing asset. And then their vendor bidding is lighter. So dedicated work order tools go deeper on vendor bid comparison than what it does today, right? The visibility gaps. Portfolio and regional dashboards are strong, but field level ticket by ticket visibility for a shift supervisor isn't clearly demonstrated in any public materials. And this is something that I actually had somebody bring up to me in a call, that unless they asked for it to see each level, what was available, that it wasn't something that was shown. Cross asset class reporting depth for mixed portfolios, multifamily, student housing should be validated post-turnable. There hasn't been any documentation around that neither. How it layers into your PMS. It integrates with the already real page and Entrada AppFolio. It does a maintenance compliance layer sitting above the PMS. The one thing that wasn't clear that you would need to ask when you're receiving a demo or working with somebody was to confirm whether the work order status, unit data, resident data sync is all bi-directional real time, or like, for example, some of these products will sync like once a day, twice a day, or 4 times a day. So that way your PMS system is recording whatever's being done in Leonardo and vice versa. And then there wasn't really anything around if they had a BI tool. I know data is super important in this industry today. So asking around, like if they have a data warehouse that you can hook up to, or if any of that data can feed back into their system of record, because everything that goes on in these tools, it's so important that you can tie it back to your property management system, or if you have like a snowflake, because they'll want to see all of these records from top level all the way down. So I have like data questions that I always dig into. So what is the true time value for a single asset class? And does that change once turnable student housing workflows are added? Is a PMS sync bi-directional in real time? Or is that nightly batch? And how does that differ by property management system? Because obviously you all know every property management system is different, and they will only allow certain times for APIs to be hit at a certain rate limit, which means that you can only touch the API so many times per day. And then how does reactive dispatch compare to a work order first platform once compliance workflows are running in parallel? So these are all things that I typically ask when I'm going into a prop tech discussion or anything that I'm onboarding before I choose tech for a different asset class or customer that I work with.
Hey, Jessica,
Any questions?
before no, thank you. That's exactly what I wanted to say. I wanted to give every one of you the opportunity to make this very interactive. So if at any given point you see something that it's worth on your end making a point, type your answer in the comments. I want to keep an eye on the chat box, and then, or also you could use the hand raise option, right? We're happy to stop, have that conversation, or answer your question. Well, Jessica, not me, right? And just continue. We wanted to make this very as interactive as possible and as useful for everyone as possible, right? And as pleasant of a experience. Please, Jessica.
Yeah, no problem. So the next one I want to talk about is SightPlan. This was mobile first work order resident communication platform, but they now partner with SmartRent. So what we know that works is it's intelligent answering service. It does after hours. It does overflow calls and turns them into work orders automatically. Awesome. Resident facing status updates so they know what's going on, when it's going on. They have a bi-directional integration with PMS platforms to keep work order status in sync without duplicate entry. And then the due diligence suite supports inspections during acquisitions, not just ongoing operations. So where to dig deeper? Well, now it's folded into SmartRent's smart home ecosystem. What is the roadmap for priorities, and is it still favoring maintenance-only customers? User reviews flag mobile app stability issues during heavy photo inspections. It would be great to test this directly with one of your technicians before moving forward with this product. Vendor accountability and compliance tracking are lighter than Leonardo247 or AppWork. And reviewers report former residents are still receiving invites after move out. So a data hygiene for this issue would be worth probing with them. And then having them show you live an actual real-time sync interval with your specific PMS for the bi-directional part, because in all of the comments that I've had is that they set up their property management system and then there's not live syncing going on. Even though it says that that's a feature, they're seeing it on the user side that it's not working in that way. It's taking a while for it to happen or a resync in order to push the info. So once again, diving in deeper, the user experience friction, obviously the photo heavy inspection is an issue. So having them show you in real time and test this directly with one of your technicians before committing is huge. The stale resident data. So the fact that former residents are still receiving invites or notifications after move out, that's kind of a big issue. So definitely talking through that possibility would be very important. And then looking at public reviews, they don't really have a lot of reviews in comparison to all of the other platforms that we're going over today. So I would say that you would probably need to ask more questions about like who they've worked with or who would be a champion for them. Because for me, talking to someone who is using the actual product before I'm vetting this product to hear about the good and the bad would be super important without there being anything visibly online for me to research. Compliance where it falls short. They don't have really any vendor accountability or compliance tracking. It's way later than the other ones. There's also no dedicated license or insurance tracking workflow. And there's nothing that you can find online to even show you that that's different. And when I've asked users, they state the same. There's also no dedicated risk or incident suite comparable to what Leonardo has. So to me, obviously being in different levels on property, that would be a big issue for me. And then some of the bigger visibility gaps is that they're just really nothing around what they're doing with SmartRent, because SmartRent's very different than what SightPlan is. So having an understanding of how that's tying together or important would be a question for me, because are you going to continue to enhance the product? Are you going to continue to mold maybe where it's falling short? Or is SmartRent kind of the movement forward and this is just a layer with it? And then the data hygiene, that makes me not want to trust the dashboard. If move out records lag, if regional leader dashboards are on the data state are overactive for resident or unit counts because it didn't properly remove that resident, that would mean that the reporting's inflated. And then how does it layer into your PMS? Obviously, going back to the first points, it keeps work order status in sync without duplicate entry. It's a genuine differentiator versus a one-way sync. The due diligence suite layers across time inspection data on top of your property management system for ongoing operations, which is great. So you have live visibility of that. But the one thing is that we would need to confirm that sync latency because it doesn't confirm real time. And I know for myself, especially if you're on a busy asset class or a renovation, or maybe there's a leak issue or a plumbing project going on. If I can't see what's going on in real time while I'm running around property, that's a huge problem for me. And then data questions to dig into. Once again, having them show me the bidirectional sync, including the latency. And then what is SmartRent's committed roadmap? Can you share that with me? Is there maintenance items? Are they features for maintenance? Is there a 12 to 24 month period for that? When do you expect to roll out any of these features? I don't want to go into these calls and have people just talk at me. I want you to show me. Show me what's coming to keep me excited about your product, to know that it's going to work for my company. How does the platform prevent former resident and move-out data from going into a stale state notifications or reporting? Show me your current reporting. Show me how it shows when move-outs happen. Does it sector that? Do I see a separate move-out section? These are all things that are very important to make sure that the technology is performing for you. Any questions?
I think we have a couple of interesting comments. I'll say I wanted to start with Shane. Shane, would you mind sharing with the group your question here?
Yeah, I'm curious as to these platforms and how willing they are to provide a sandbox so you can test them.
You would be surprised. And actually, they most of the time do. And if you have anybody like a single point of contact in your company that typically handles like your integrations or your platform setups, or even if it's you, it is something that they do give. I think the issue is that most of the time, those that are vetting these type of products wouldn't even know to ask that.
Yeah, because I mean, a lot of times it's like, what is the end user experiencing in the field, right? So how many clicks, like on a mobile work order, how many clicks do they have to do on their phone to get to where they need to be? And that's a big deal.
It is, because the more time that they're spending fumbling with technology, the less time that they're spending with a resident or whatever might be going on at the property. You're absolutely right. So I can tell you in my history, if my maintenance technician was handling this conversation, that would never be a question asked. If it was the property manager, potentially, regional sometimes. But if it's handled by an integration person or somebody who is part of your IT at a corporate level, they would be asking for those things. What tends to not happen, though, is they don't take it to the field. They don't take it to the teams that are actually going to be using the product. They're going to demonstrate that, on their own. They're going to work with the regional and PM, and then they're going to get that feedback. And as long as everybody's happy with the price tag, they're going to go ahead and move on. This is something I cover in another slide about how important it is to run pilots and to have people actually that are going to be using the product running through the vetting process and doing multiple pilots of each of these products across maybe a single asset at a time. So you can see what works or doesn't work for your, region or portfolio.
Cool. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
There's another very interesting comment from Jonathan. Jonathan, you want to share?
Sure. I actually just ran into this one myself where I was requesting sandbox-like environments. And pretty much every software developer was keen on, showing their stuff, but where their software interfaces with other, like Yardi, for example, they're just like, no, we don't have a sandbox environment. From that, it would require spooling up a virtual machine on their system, and the coordination between that is just not there. Insert, reason here. But,
hey, because I'm gonna leave this in here. That the other dishwasher, I was telling him that it should be on there, but he said,
So sorry about that. I just you wouldn't be complete if some work wouldn't interfere with with our 2 o'clock on a Thursday presentation. So basically it comes down to the Sandbox is built, it's still a demo environment, right? It is not actually a live that you could actually test it and try to break it. Am I saying this the wrong way, Jessica, or is right?
So there's a difference between a sandbox that's backend and a sandbox that is what they call UI. So if they're giving you a true UI, which means it's an actual platform that you can log into and basically run test data through it, then you should be able to go end to end. If they're saying that that they don't have like a connection in their sandbox for like a Yardi user, I don't know which product that you're talking about, but to me that would raise a red flag, because the whole purpose of me wanting to buy your property is for you to make my life easier no matter what level I am on property. And if I can't see that you're showing me that that product can go back and forth, even if it's not in the live environment, like whether that's through like a prototype or a click through or something like that, because I do know that there is in some of these legacy systems, they're very, very careful on what's shown to the public or what's allowed to be shown to the public, and Yardi is one of them. But they are typically able to provide you a way to see it. And this is where I would also then ask if they can give you like a competing, property manager company, or somebody that would be at the same type of asset that you are, to where you can just go and have an honest conversation with that maintenance director, that technician lead, or property manager, to where they can go over their real-time experience. And they're going to typically give you the person that loves their product or they have the best relationship with. But who cares? Like, as long as you get to see what's actually happening in the product and being able to ask questions and seeing something live, that to me would be better than just saying, no, we can't do that.
In their defense, my situations, I request very specific scenarios that they maybe weren't prepared to demo.
I love that. You would be my best friend, honestly. So you would. And like for me, because I've worked in the prop tech sector as well, like I can't tell you how many times someone wanted to see a real-time demo of like a credit and criminal screening, which, is incredibly hard because you obviously don't have real data like that you can use. So like you're using very stale things to show. So with that being said, like I think you shouldn't change that approach. I think you continue to dig deeper that way. And if they really want to close the sale and that's something that's really important to you, they'll figure out a way to get you the correct information or get you with somebody that can show you what you're asking for to make sure you're making the correct decision for you and your staff. I know for myself, I was so confident in our product that I didn't care. I handed over like anyone that would talk to anyone, and I would show them every piece that I could.
You're saying something very interesting here, Jess. I put like public posts on LinkedIn saying that, look, if you think you have a great tech product, I would love for you to come. This will be like free of charge for you, and I will test it. I would like to test it live and actually push it to see when it breaks or if it breaks. And if your product is great, like it's a huge win for you, right? You show that you have an awesome product. Guess how many takers I had?
Not many.
Zero. Absolutely zero. Like it's super quiet. It gets super quiet when people are asked to actually show live, right? To test live the capabilities, and it's quite amazing to me. But I think we're gonna do this in the future again. And actually, I think we're gonna do like a continuation of this at some point soon enough. Bring you back in so we could test products live and whether they, whether they, I guess, allowing us to do it or we'll find another way, around it. But I think the public needs to know, needs to be aware of like what's possible, what's not possible, versus just keeping everything insulated and tested on a massive amount of people, right? To see if it works or not, right? After the sales is done. Craig has a hand up. Craig, please.
Yeah.
Well,
go ahead.
2 points. If they can't show you everything that their product can do, certainly a red flag. You should be able to demonstrate product from its end to end. Be careful on test environments though, because UATs are hard to build and they can be messy, and you've got to have a UAT on your end that you can plug into the product that you're wanting to test, unless you're willing to mess up live data at an actual property. So sometimes it's not necessarily as easy as, oh yeah, we can just give you a Yardi environment to work in, or an Entrada environment to work in. The other thing is that make sure, and this is way down the road, but make sure contracts are built to where you can't lie. If I tell you that I'm going to integrate with Yardi, and I tell you that I'm going to integrate every hour on make readies and every live data on work orders, if I don't do that, then your contract needs to be written in a way that if you can't do what you said you were doing, then I can get out of the contract. I personally never go into a place where I'm talking to somebody about the product that I work for where I don't tell the truth. If you ask me if I can do it and it can't do it, then I won't tell you that it will. I know a lot of salespeople, and I do more technical sales than I do just sales, but a lot of salespeople, oh yeah, we got that, we can do that. No worries, got it handled for you. Which is what I love about digging into it.
Nope, that's right there. I'm right there with you. I can't tell you how many times I ripped apart a procurement partner in my career because ultimately, the data is the source of truth. So if you can't tell me how all of this is going to be bi-directional and I'm going to have the right reporting and I'm somehow streamlining these activities for internal and external needs, then we're not moving any further forward. And I mean, in some of these prop tech companies today, they're so sales led and not 100% product led, to where basically if the product and the development teams are spending the time catching up to whatever sales sold. This seems to be the common denominator that I'm hearing across the board when all of these platforms are being vetted, is that they are being promised something and they're under delivering after signing almost all the time. So to your point, digging deeper is important, including into the contract. We good to move on?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So HappyCo, mobile inspection leader, expanding into full maintenance and make-ready workflows. They're known as the best in class for mobile inspection tooling for unit interiors, common areas, building exteriors. They have a strong make-ready and turn coordination with customizable portfolio-wide inspection templates, which I think from different asset perspectives it makes it a very strong product. Their Happy BI gives you portfolio level insights into their conditions and team performance. I would challenge what that exactly means. Once again, based on your asset type, if you're a regional, if you're a maintenance supervisor, what does that mean? What reporting are they giving you? What insights are they giving you? And they have a broad PMS integration footprint, including Yardi and MRI, in addition to a dedicated acquisition due diligence suite. But where to dig deeper is they grew from an inspections product. So I think we need to dig in deeper on what the work order dispatch looks like in the vendor workflows, that they're mature enough for the inspection core. Their pricing model is definitely a little more robust than others. They do it per unit, per walk, and then there's like add-ons on top of that. So model your total cost at your unit count. They're historically thinner on vendor compliance and insurance tracking, and the users report needing to do multiple work orders to close one HappyCo ticket. So definitely walk through that live before signing. And what I mean by multiple work orders is that because it might be a different GL category, for example, so you went in for a plumbing activity and you found that there was an electrical issue and you had to change out an outlet or things like that, HappyCo has a tendency to make you switch into 2 different work orders just to complete the original one that came in. And then reviewers cite gaps between the mobile app and web dashboard. So when you're doing things on the mobile only part, it's not always coming over to the web. So when I dug deeper with the teams, they told me that there was very significant differences between the app and the website. So with some actions only even being possible on one platform. So meaning some stuff in the mobile is only available in the mobile. Some items are only available in the web. And that makes it very hard for that to be a system of truth if your mobile experience isn't communicating to your web and vice versa. The duplicate work orders is a big issue for them too. That has to do with the workflow and efficiencies. So having them walk you through that live will be super important. And then they definitely love the customer service for HappyCo. Just their response times can be a little bit variable. So I definitely would ask for support SLAs in writing, because we all know, depending on what level of management you are at the property, I know from my experience, sometimes maintenance and technology are not friends. So making sure that they're supported is going to be super important for adoption. Where compliance falls short, they grew from the inspection product. You need to make sure that their compliance and risk depth reflects that lineage. And they don't have dedicated licensing and certification tracking. So that to me is a disconnect between that and the PMS systems. So something that you'll want to make sure you ask more questions around, because you'll need to come up with a way to handle that process. Visibility gaps. So even though that they say that they do, the Happy BI, they don't really provide the level of visibility for on-site staff working on primarily. So need to definitely talk about the difference between the app and web parity. And then the per unit per walk pricing model can really obscure your true costs. So you'll be thinking you're signing for one thing, and then you'll get your contract and there's like a whole bunch of nickel and dimed items on there. So having them provide you a full breakout will be important. And then how it layers into your PMS. This obviously goes based on your integration. So including Yardi MRI, they also have their dedicated due diligence. Their pricing layers, and this is where you got to get really detailed with these guys, is that depending on what type of data you want to be pushing back and forth between your systems, this is where that, property suite, unit walk, due diligence, model against it, your actual PMS unit count. So you're not, once again, being nickel and dimed or surprised. And then confirming work order dispatch maturity, because like I said, it's not been fully proven. We've only known like what their inspection items were. So I know that there's been a gap in what that looks like for them. So data questions to dig into. Is this a workflow setting? Is it a platform limitation when it comes to the ticket issue? What does full portfolio cost look like? The whole thing. Property suite, due diligence, per unit fees. How does that work with a base subscription? Is there a full parity between the mobile app and web dashboard today, or a committed date for parity? So is that just a couple of users complained about it, or is that a full-blown issue across, their product? And I would have them show you in real time. They should be able to. Any questions?
More of a comment, really. That
Yeah.
paper walk with HappyCo, it can come up and bite you pretty quick. Like, we were
100%.
having discussions about this recently, whereas the number I was being told per month was somewhere around 2,000, and then once they factored in all the extra inspections, it was 3,000 a month.
Jonathan, is this a price per per a property? Is it how is it priced? Like these thousands of dollars? To my knowledge, most of the technology, the tech is like pricing per door. How was this? Like, what did that $2,000-3,000 represent?
So without having gone into their contract, what it looks like is they'd signed on for a fixed number of properties and then added an inspection layer afterwards, which ended up costing more than they thought.
Oh, so it was like the price of the contract plus like $3,000 for, I understand. Okay. Thank you for clarifying.
It was one of the biggest complaints that was given to me when I was digging in for a client who was potentially using them for their maintenance layer. And once we got, the first initial quote versus what they sent the contract to be, they were very, very different. And if you were not, diligent in looking at a contract, which we know that there's people out there that think that what you say that's what you're giving me, so they don't reread, contracts, although everybody should read anything that you sign, but we are all human at the end of the day. I can't tell you how many times people have signed a contract and didn't realize that those fees were baked in there at the end until the first invoice came through. So going back to the other gentleman who was saying, making sure that you have, things in your contract that are correct. I can't stress that enough, because if you don't ask these questions, they're not going to tell you everything. They just want to get the sale. Awesome. All right, let's get into AppWork. Purpose-built work order, make-ready vendor management platform. Literally, property managers like blood, sweat, and tears have really kind of helped mold this product. It's AI-driven task categorization, automatic technician assignment, so it speeds up the triaging parts, which is great because who has time to tell each of your staff to go do what? The digital make-ready board replaces a whiteboard with photo and timeline tracking for every turn, which is great. Vendor management includes contracts, W-9s, purchase orders alongside performance tracking. And I can't tell you from a property management perspective how nice that is. Because trying to track that or have it in your system of record can be very difficult and tedious at times. Technician performance tracking and gamification features are aimed squarely at adoption. So basically encouraging the teams to use it. So that way there's no lack of adoption there. And then they do also, as of recently, because I feel like AppWork is building something new every single week right now, they have all the PMS integrations, which is a huge celebratory item, because there's a lot of them that don't have that. But yeah, AppWork is doing lots of lifts right now. Where to dig deeper? They are newer. They are smaller than other maintenance-focused platforms, so check what portfolio size is supported. Their compliance and risk management depth is a little bit lighter than Leonardo247. So depending on what's important to you, it's stuff to really dig into and ask. The reviewers do flag that there is occasional integration and notification hiccups, and a turn board some call confusing. So probably dig a little bit deeper, ask for fixes on that, and maybe examples. And then most public reviews come from small to mid operators, 500 plus unit reference to confirm that dashboards hold up to that scale. So asking more users about their experience. When they say that the turn board's kind of confusing, it's relative to the rest of the app. So this is taking something that has predominantly been put on a wall and trying to make sense in tech. And if you're not tech savvy, I can see how it's confusing. The photo quality, reviewers note that the capture quality could be better. I know AppWork has said that they are in active development. I'm not sure of an update on that timeline, but I do know that that was still an issue when doing an onboarding with a customer recently. And then the integration notification hiccups, it's a general summary of this being an occasional issue. Now, I do have to say this because I know every property management system that there is out there. And sometimes these hiccups come from the property management side, the system side, not necessarily AppWork. You're only limited to where there's an outage or where there might be an API breakdown, but also too, AppWork could be being rate limited by the property management system. If they're using a middleware, that could be potentially the problem. So without having specific examples to be able to know what exactly that looks like, but if an integration fails, you're not feeding any information over to your system of record. So that creates manual work for whoever's responsible. So just things to keep in mind. Where compliance may fall short, they have really good compliance features. I would just have them show you what those compliance features look like and how they essentially help the day-to-day technicians. It's a little bit lighter than what Leonardo247s look like. And then they have the due diligence suite. It's comparable to HappyCo's, but I know that there's pre-acquisition inspections that need a separate tool. So I'd have them show you a little bit more around that. Because once again, I know AppWork has been building like crazy. And they may have improved some of those things since the last time that I onboarded somebody. Visibility gaps, dashboards are a stated strength. But once again, newer, smaller platform will need to make sure that you confirm portfolio size so it can hold up to scale. And then the gamification, and this was an interesting thing that a property manager brought up to me. Even though it does make the use of the tool very fun, it has been known that the staff has been chasing coins or badges and not actually completing work. So making sure that, that functionality is used to be true. And from an operational standpoint, if you're going to use that, use this tool to keep that in mind as a possible potential risk, that they might just be saying they're completing things, but they're not, because they just want their coins and their badges. How it layers into your PMS, like I said, they integrations is with everybody. They have all the majors. They even have a product that I really love, which is Ingrain, which is really cool. If you guys have not heard that, it's a 3D modeling of your buildings. So where you can see exactly where the unit is located, what part of the building, what floor it's on. It's pretty awesome. And then Perpexo, which I worked very intimately with, they use them as their data warehouse so that you can sync up your own Snowflake, Databricks, whatever you want to query. And they create a really good analytics and BI pipeline with true data from your property. So it extends the reporting reach, which I think is super big because everybody's really big about data right now. So anywhere that's going to give you access to real-time data based on how the tools are layering is going to be very, very big for you. So what I would ask is if the Propexo with their, data, like if they, sync back any of that data, into the prop management system. Because like, for example, RealPage, you can hit an analytic, data section. If they don't write it back, is that something they could think about? Or is everything have to be accessed via Snowflake? Because not everybody uses a data warehouse. They should, but not everybody. What's the actual timeline for the app web photo quality and the turn board usability gaps that the reviewers are citing? Do they even know about that? Can they provide you examples of what they found to prove that it's not an issue? Can you provide 2 to 3 references of 500 plus unit portfolios to validate the dashboard and reporting performance at scale? Because for me, once again, talking to a direct user is going to give me more of an idea if this is going to work for me than just watching a demo. And once again, if you don't know how to ask these questions, or there's people that are vetting this product that wouldn't know how to ask these questions, that for me would give me more of a source of truth. This might be a great product for me. Any questions there?
You actually touched on a important topic there with the gamification and perverse incentive. And I was just wondering if you had applied a similar layer in your research to all of these.
Yeah, so AppWork is one of the first ones to introduce this. So like I definitely see in the generations that are coming in to do, maintenance at this point where that kind of keeps people motivated and working. But ultimately, if it's not controlled or monitored the right way to confirm that that's true, I just see that you're going to get into where people are going to just keep trying to collect things and cheat the system, if you will. If you're a gamer by any means, like you always try to find a cheat code, right? So I think it comes down to operationally. Like for me, when I was on property, and we didn't have all of these fancy things that we have now, but this would be something that I would track each week with my technician of like what work orders they did. I would be calling every resident to see if they were happy with their work order, if there's anything that we missed. So for me, the gamification is great to keep people motivated, but on the operation side, if you're not fact checking them, then you're doing a disservice. So I just think that it's got to be a very operational with the maintenance staff on what that process looks like. I think it would be great if other maintenance platforms maybe introduce something similar, but there needs to be a way to make it very, very visible or forced, so that way, operationally speaking, you're not adding a layer of things that you need to go back and track.
Well, I'm just thinking not even just gamification, but like with any of these softwares, you're looking at property managers who are incentivized towards one goal and set of KPIs. You've got maintenance towards another, and so on. So I'm just wondering if, I don't know, if there's like a unified incentive that can be applied.
So I'm sure that most of you realize that every single PMC operates completely differently, right? So I don't think that there's a unified baseline on any KPI or metric. Some of them are more revenue focused. So people will choose tech to keep their budget lines down, not necessarily like work orders or, operational quality of life items. You'll have basically executives that are also just looking at like bottom line or what's going to be the easiest to roll out across an entire portfolio. And this is where in my next slides, I really kind of dig in on how we should do things differently, no matter what level that you're at on property, to be able to create a necessary baseline. But no, there's not really been an easy way to identify what does good actually look like. That could be a constant KPI or metric to measure. Now, I can come back in the next time that we all meet and bring to the table what I'm seeing regionally. You'll see it's all over the board, but I can definitely do that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. All right. So I actually got asked specifically about this one. This is more SFR related. I'm not sure if any of you guys have like heard them on the market now, but I do know that they were at NAA this year. This is automated troubleshooting guides. They help diagnostic questions before work orders even created. So essentially like trying to walk a resident through basically what we would do back in the day, a YouTube tutorial to learn how to fix something on our own before it goes in. They do direct documented messages between residents, vendor, and property manager. So that's, kind of great because it helps obviously keep one thread. They do have really good performance analytics to track the team throughout. So jobs per day, speed to schedule, speed to assign. And then they do have integrations built for mostly the SFR market, AppFolio and Rent Manager being the caveat there. And they're also growing their vetted network partnerships. So obviously any third party, vendors that have to come out to assist the property, they have an actual network for that. Where to dig deeper, maintenance only by design. So there's no inspections, no make ready board or compliance or risk feet, and is typically paired with separate tools to handle those jobs. They're tiered pricing gates, two-way texting, e-signatures, vendor portals. So once again, you're getting into that model of total cost per unit very quickly. Built primarily for single family and small unit count residential portfolios. So you'll need to validate if it would work for a large multifamily community or your asset class that you currently operate in. And then support quality is inconsistent. Some describe fast, some others say that people are rude. And then there's a lot of incorrect responses that they're getting when they're calling in. And then, like I said, they are the narrowest in their property management system support because they're predominantly SFR. So where to dig deeper? Obviously, support being inconsistent, feature tier gating. So this is that pricing where you have to pay for these features. And then their pace of innovation. It basically contrasts because it's AI forward competitors. It suggests a roadmap and it should be discussed directly with the vendor. And we don't feel like there's a lot of what is their AI forward, thought process. A lot of the conversations from the user perspective is that it's very light. And they don't know what questions to ask because obviously AI is the new hot and heavy for 2026, right? So what does good look like with AI? Nobody knows that. So if you don't really know AI from front to back and what's going to be damaging to you, your property, your systems, you wouldn't even know where to begin with that. Where compliance falls short, once again, maintenance only by design. So licensing, insurance, audit readiness, all of these things are separate systems entirely. And then no inspections or make ready boards. Visibility gaps, no portfolio-wide risk view. So if you're a regional, like you don't get to see everything from, a higher level. Everything's basically done based on that site. And it's built for single family and small unit count portfolios. And then how does it layer in? The one thing that they did do good with was the purpose-built integration. So they are built very deeply in AppFolio, Buildium, PropertyWare, and Rent Manager. So where the data is very much shared. It does add a marketplace layer on top of the PMS for connection for sourcing outside vendors, but there's no other property management systems beyond that list. So where does the data questions come from? What does the actual total cost per unit look like once I add everything? Instead of, I just want base model, and then all of a sudden you get hit with those fees. You need to know what overall price is, and then a la carte what each of those would add to. How does PropertyMeld recommend pairing with compliance and inspection tools? And have you seen pairing work well operationally? Have them show you real life examples. Have them talk to somebody that's using them as a layer. And then do they have any large multifamily for reference? Are they heading that direction? Or are they starting with mid-market? What are the portfolios that they find to be their fit?
I have more of a comment than a question.
Go for it.
So at the beginning of this group here, this PropertyMeld, you talked about resident diagnostic capabilities, and HappyCo actually rolled out a platform that was very similar to that, where they would take that on themselves. Resident would, have an issue, and they were trying to help them diagnose electrical and plumbing. And from a maintenance and facilities perspective, I don't want that. I don't want the resident diagnosing any of that, quite frankly. Especially when it comes to plumbing and electrical.
Yeah, it's a liability. And then also too, they can create more damage that you're going to have to then turn around and deal with in the end, right? And then how do you charge a resident if it's a supported function through the technology, right? So I completely agree. And that would be another question I would have. Can I turn that feature off? Do I have to have that as an offering? I would hope that in all of these products that you are able to control all of your features as you want them to be, right? But yeah, like that's a good question to go back and be like, what if I don't want that? You know what I mean? Can we turn that function off? I know in some
on the flip side, being the resident, if I'm paying rent, the last thing I want to do is diagnose your problem.
I totally hear that, but as someone who has been a renter herself, for beyond my property management years, I can't tell you how many times I've had bad service, and there's like I'm waiting weeks to have something done, and I would go on YouTube how to do something because I couldn't wait any longer. So from an SFR,
that's a whole nother issue. If you had to wait weeks, that's a whole nother issue. That's unacceptable.
It is 100%. But everyone has a standard, right? But is every property holding that standard? And is it being controlled? Is it being monitored? Are you really digging into the resident reviews, right? So from an SFR standpoint, I rented a home with Invitation Homes, for example. And one house, no problems at all. Second house, the AC was going out almost every single week. And I would call, I would put emails in, and I'm looking at the resident reviews. And this is like Tampa, Florida market in specific. And almost everybody was experiencing it. Whether it was plumbing issue, AC issue, anything that was like capital type projects, it just seemed to no one responded to anything. So for me, you just go down this whole entire rabbit hole of like, okay, well, how do I make this work until somebody does come out, right? So, but yeah, I completely agree. It's not the right way. Customer service should be the primary focus in all of these, management companies, but it doesn't always happen in every area. So, but either way, technology standpoint, make it work for you, make sure that it works for what your business modeling is and what your expectations are for your staff in your regions. But, it's a feature that's there if somebody wants it. So how does it stack up to the jobs that matter? As you can see, we got some fun little colors here. You can see that there's a lot of configurations that have to be looked at. So meaning it's really dependent on what does good look like for you versus what they have in place. Because once again, every property management company does stuff a little bit different, wants different data sets, wants different connections, wants different viewpoints. We all know that there's not a one size fits all, right? So what's a good one size fits most?
I think we're looking at the green and the yellows, right? We rate them. Yeah, 3, 2, and 1 maybe. Where like red is 0, yellow is 1, and green is 3. Looks like just by looking at it, grosso modo, probably like I'm looking here that Leonardo247 scores probably the best.
Yeah, so the red means it's limited or you have to add it on. So it's not included. So some of them, as I said, during different parts of the presentation, like there was a lot of add-ons that would come into play. So like, for example, vendor accountability. So like whether it's a due diligence, dashboard or compliance dashboard, things like that. But majority of them that were limited had like at least enough to where it could be just configured to what you want it to be. But if it doesn't have the capability at all, that's where I marked red. But yes, to your point, Leonardo does score the best.
It also appears that Leo and AppWork, depending on what is really important to you, while it looks like they scored basically the same, they are almost complete opposite between their yellows and greens.
Yep.
Except for Make Ready, it looks like.
That's a great observation, Chad.
So whenever I'm going to go and vet product, whether I was on property or doing this for a company, this is what I do is I go through and I create all of these user journeys. And then I basically stack a case of like, what are the commonalities of the services that are offered? And then how do I rank them based on what's going to be good for that customer of mine or for my property or my staff? This is really opening to tell you, right? It's a good visual. Then I break it into asset types, right? Because there's obviously a lot out there. As you can see, almost everybody is great for conventional. PropertyMeld is going to be based on configuration dependence. Student housing, obviously some people can kind of capture it. I know that it's a little bit difficult based on a per bed modeling, plus a common area. And from a senior independent living, same things. Affordable is one of the most difficult markets for systems to really adopt, just because every program is so different, every area is so different. But Leonardo seems to have that down pat. Single family, or build to rent, PropertyMeld is kind of the front runner in that regard. And then mixed use, so whether it's commercial, retail, things of that nature. Obviously, Leonardo, SitePlan, and HappyCo have a portion of that covered, and some other areas don't. So it's just good to understand the difference in asset classes. So if you have a mixed portfolio, you understand what product might work across, or where you're going to have to spend more time doing discovery. So relative cost ranking across all 5 vendors, and this is me talking to customers that are currently using, and also obviously what's been shared upon discovery that I've done for other companies. AppWork, just because they're positioned for small to mid-market operators, I'm hearing that they're typically the most honest and lowest. You just have to confirm pricing scales for anything that's past 1,000 units. Because I believe at that point you get into more enterprise discussions. PropertyMeld, it's low tier, but you're going to get into the portion where you have the add-on. So even though the low tier is the base tier, you add on texting, e-signatures, vendor portals, and all of that, you can get into higher tiers. HappyCo is moderate because you have a monthly base rent, a property suite per unit, and then the due diligence per walk. So you're getting into those add-ons, so it can scale very quickly. SightPlan, moderate to high, and that's because they do custom enterprise quotes. So there's several premium add-ons, and it's layered on top. And then Leonardo247 is enterprise quote, and it's because you're getting into a PM, a risk, inspection, licensing, and it typically means a heavier rollout of costs. So I factor that in as well. So questions to ask before you sign. How long from a resident submitting a request to a technician being dispatched, measured, not estimated? Visibility, can a regional manager see status, SLA risk, and overdue PMs across every property without calling the site? Adoption, will technicians actually use the mobile app in the field, including offline and low connectivity conditions? Integration, is the PMS integration bidirectional? Does it stay in sync in real time, or is it a nightly batch sync? Vendor accountability, does the platform track vendor licensing, insurance, and performance, or is that still a spreadsheet? And the total cost, what is the true per unit cost once all the add-ons like due diligence, answering service, or premium reporting are included? If they can't answer those questions to you for you fully, you shouldn't be signing anything. So this is my core 4. This is what I do every time that I go vet a project for a customer. And when I was on property, is to map your use cases. So I take 7 pain points and I basically put them down. I don't evaluate against features that you don't need. So I need 7 practical use cases by pain today. I rank them from the highest to the lowest. I score them against real workflows. Talk to the maintenance supervisors and the technicians, not just your IT, your integrations person. All of these things need to be scored for each platform. And then I pilot on one segment. And by one segment, I mean one single portfolio or one property at a time, 60 to 90 days. And I do a couple of different products. So if you're torn between 2 or 3, you can go in and ask for, 30 to 90 day pilot, depending on the product type. And you can try to run to see what's going to work best for your asset type, for your technicians. Have them very heavily involved, because you're making a huge mistake if you're not having the people using the tools be part of the operational decision process making, because then you're going to have low adoption, you're going to have workarounds, all of your data is going to be skewed, and then you're not going to be able to actually track performance or see where the true issues are today. Once you compare your dispatch time, your PM completion, your technician adoption, and not just a feature list, you'll know the answer of what's the best product for your asset. So pick the platform that fits how your teams work, not the one with the longest feature list. My name is Jessica Tierney. I'm the CEO of Inked, and let's map your practical use case and run a fair side-by-side pilot. Let me know how I can help.
Let's give Jess a solid round of applause. Thank you, Jess, for putting this together. It was great. I think there's more to cover. I want to think for all of us as a group, what would be a great way to kind of bring solution providers and actually ask questions live, right? Ask them and maybe have them ready to do like a presentation as much as it could be done, right? In in a live environment, like in a Zoom environment, because I think everybody wins here when we put all the cards on the table and we actually show, right? There's so much going on with technology. There's actually a force that's coming. I'll say maybe not so quiet, at least AI. It's ready to put out of business the PMSs. They're they're having incredible resources, right? Financial resources to compete. Uh, I can't speak on a product because I never seen it, and I don't have intimate knowledge from others of how great their product is. But basically, they're trying to build another PMS, but it's kind of like AA based, not like the old the old P3s PMSs, and they're they're really making headways. They have a lot of funds, and it looks like product is great too. I don't think it's just like a money play here. They're really doing some things right. So it's very interesting how that's gonna play out for the entire industry at the PMS level and also at a uh, maintenance technology level too, right? Because they at least AI also has like maintenance related product. Let's see how useful that is. What's the pricing? What's the utility of it? We're going to be seeing, I think, interesting times within the next year or so. I like to keep bringing the technology topic back to the group here and just have open, honest conversations. Bring experts like Jess and also technology providers to show us what they build and ask the tough questions. Because honestly, the worst thing that we could do as an operator is to buy in the dark, right? Make uneducated decisions for whatever reason. So, thank you all for being here today. Another great meeting. I see you in a couple of weeks. We're gonna keep it for right now at Thursday at 2 p.m. because we had a lot of folks that couldn't make it because of reoccurring meetings at the same time on Wednesdays, and we're gonna try to change every now and then to like Tuesday or to like Thursday at a different hour just to try to capture more audience, like folks that can't really move work meetings around, so we could get more of you in the room. Thank you again. Thank you, Jess. Thank you all for joining today. Have an amazing afternoon.